That is why Lollapot was the name for lesbian women. Welcome at the Rijksmuseum. This museum for me is the perfect place to learn about my identity as a Dutch man. But what can I find here about my identity as part of the LGBTQI+ community? My name is Arnout van Krimpen and I'm a tour guide here at the museum. Until 1869, homosexuality was referred to as sodomy. This term is derived from the biblical city of Sodom. Residents of Sodom did everything God had forbidden, including homosexuality. So God decided to destroy the city. Abraham begged him not to do so, and God gave him a quest: go and find 10 righteous people. Abraham failed, so God decided to destroy the city. This stained glass window was intended to teach 16th century people about good and evil. Here we see the burning evil. There we have Lot and his daughters, the cousin of Abraham who had fled the city, and he is being intoxicated by his daughters because he was the only man around and they wanted offspring. So, incest is a given and sodomy should be burned. A mythological story. Here we have the supreme god Jupiter cross-dressing as the goddess Diana. And this is how he seduces the nymph Callisto. This story is interesting on several layers when it comes to gender or sexual identity. Jupiter cross-dresses as a woman, and Callisto does not know that she is actually seduced by a man, and she gives herself to what she thinks is a lesbian love affair. The painter Jacob de Witt did not choose this story because he wanted to tell us this. He chose this because in this way he could be involved with nudity and sex, not to tell us something about gender bending. In the 18th century, the hunt for sodomites was harder than ever. Many people were sentenced to death. In places where that still happens, the best way to stay off the radar is to conform to gender norms. Be a real man or be a real woman. What gender norms are changes all the time. From our perspective, 18th century masculinity is far from masculine. Now, in the 21st century, people are questioning gender norms again. Think, for example, of international actor Billy Porter. The Lollapot, literally translated as lazy pan, was a copper or stone pot inside a wooden foot stove. Put burning coals in it and then you have sort of a portable heater. And you could take that to, for example, the church or a room without a fireplace. Women would put it on the floor, have their feet on it and their skirt over the stove, and then you would be heated up on the bottom part of your body. And there we have the sexual connotation. Because what happens if women get heated up at the bottom part? The idea was that they would get sexually aroused and they would be prepared for sex. And what happens if you have more women at the same time being heated up? That is why Lollapot was the name for lesbian women. In Dutch, the short version, pot, is still used for lesbian women. How did King William II in 1848 go overnight from a very conservative king to a liberal monarch in a constitutional monarchy? Well, he was blackmailed. The 1848 constitutional reforms that he against all odds agreed on were compelled by revolutions elsewhere in Europe, but also by a group of journalists and politicians who knew about his homosexual encounters. They threatened to make this public if he was not prepared for far-reaching political concessions. LGBT people are nowadays still blackmailed. Think, for example, of Nikki tutorials quite recently. The Netherlands have become much more liberal over the centuries. But being LGBT is still a taboo for example, royal families in Europe. Could you, for example, mention an openly gay king or queen, or even a prince or princess?